Hi everyone, this is Sharan here. Today we are going to see some of the SQL syntaxes for basic operations such as identifying the minimum value, maximum value, getting the count of number of records, and identifying how many distinct values are present in a particular column. And we will also be covering about implementing filtering conditions, how to sort the data, and how to use group by, and how can we do filtering on top of a group by. So we are going to see the syntax for all these operations using SQL. So the tool that I am using is, like as covered in the previous sessions, I'm using the MySQL database, and I'm using the MySQL workbench in order to write the queries. So if you are using a different database and then trying to learn the same things, the syntax might slightly differ, so you have to keep that in mind. So if you are using, like if you have decided to use MySQL DB, so then it should be all right. Like you have to ensure that you go with the default installation, so the default DB comes up with the installation. So we will start with the simple data exploration to better understand about this particular default DB. So this default DB is about movie rental shop. So it has various tables such as the customers tables, movies tables, various rental related details like what is the rental amount, what is the replacement cost, and how much days a particular movie can be rented, and like various actors in the movies and so on. So let's have a look into the data, try to understand what is it about, and then we will try to learn all these functionalities that we have discussed using SQL. So moving on to the database, like as you see on my screen, like I'm going to use the default database. So let's so the list here on the left hand side, so it might be slightly small, like I will read out to you. So it does various tables. The name of the tables are actor, address, category, city, country, customer, film actor, film category, film text, inventory, language, payment, rental, staff, and store. So these are all the various tables that are available in this particular database. So to just have a look into like some of those tables which we will be using for today's session, so I'm going to show you like how the data would look like. So let me just execute this command so that I am going to use the default DB. So this is the first one. Like it has the various actors, it has the ID column, and then the first name as well as last name, and the next one is address. So it has the address ID and various details. And let me just quickly execute some of these the other tables. So this is about the city, so it has the city ID, city name, country ID, and so on. So film, so this is the one of the main table, so which has a lot of details. Like it has the film title, description, the year of release, and it has like the rental duration, the rental rate, the length of the particular film, what is the replacement cost, the rating, and any special features or tagging about those movies. So this is the data set that we would be mostly using for today's session. And the other ones are like the link between actors and film IDs, and this provides details about the rental, like when was it rented, which customer it has been rented, the inventory ID, when it was returned, and which staff helped in the transaction, and the other one is about the payment. So it has various customers ID, the staff who processed the payment, the rental ID, the amount for which the payment has been made, and then the date. So these are all, so you would have got an understanding about like how the database would is looking like. So it has various tables, and all these are related specifically to the movie rental. So maybe we can consider that this database belongs to an shop which rents out a movie, and we are going to use this in order to learn the basic functionalities, like the basic SQL queries, in order to like get the required information. So moving on to the first one, so let's use, like we use limit as discussed then previously, to in order to limit the number of rows that is being fetched. So by default here, like the limit is set to 1000. So if I directly run, it will, like, if it has more than 1,000 records, it will retrieve the first 1,000 records. So when I say limit equal to 10, like, it limits the data to only 10 records. So if you are using a different database, so then so instead of limit 10, like for example in SQL Server, it will be select top 10 star. So the syntax slightly differs depending upon the DB, and like it won't be too much of a difference, but slightly. And the next one is, let's say we want to identify the minimum and maximum value. So this can be used for numerical, for dates, and so on. So in this case, let's say I want to check for the films. I want to check the most the cheapest film that is easy to replace. Like the replacement cost is very less, and those films for which the replacement cost is quite high. So when I execute this, we can see that the range is from $9.99 to $29.99. So that's the range of the value. And let's say we want to identify the average or sum. So the functions are like AVG is for average, and SUM would do the sum for us. So let me just execute this one. So this one uses the average replacement cost and also the average rental duration. So let's say I want to sum up all the replacement cost. So for the inventory that is available. So when I execute this one, we can see the sum is close to $20,000. So that's the inventory. That's the value of the assets, like the value of the value of the inventory that we have. And moving on to the next one, let's say we want to maybe for this film data set, we want to do a distinct of the rating to see like what are the different types of movies that are all available. So we can use the distinct and then name of the column. So this will provide us the distinct values of the particular column. So let's say we want to identify distinct combinations. So we can mention that a distinct of rating. So let's say along with the rating, I want to get the distinct combination of rating as well as maybe rental duration to see how the pattern is. So what will happen is this will get us the unit combination of these two columns. So the number of rows has increased because like for each rating it gets all the unit rental duration that is available as well. So we can also sort this data. So let's say I can use order by and say rating. So this will help us to sort based on one column to see what's happening. So if you see all the G rated ones are together, and then we can see the rental durations like ranging from 3 to 7 and so on for all the ratings that are available. And moving on to the next one, let's say we want to filter a particular set of data. So filtering is mostly useful. Let's say we want to identify a sample, or we want to identify, let's say, people from a specific city have certain characteristics. So maybe in order to check it, we want to say maybe filter out all the customers from a specific city. So maybe we use filtering. So not only that, in a real life situation, the entire the data will be really huge, and we want to study a specific about a specific targeted user. We need to use filtering in order to fetch it. So here we can use, so what I'm using here on the screen you can see is on the films table, I am filtering based on replacement cost that is greater than 25, so which is towards the higher end, whereas the rental rate is less than $3, which is again on the lower end. Like on one side it's very expensive to replace, on the other side it's been rented out for a cheaper rate. So maybe it's a popular movie that's rented very frequently. So when I execute this one, this gives me all the combinations where the replacement costs are high and whereas the rental rates are quite small. So maybe we can also reduce it, like to see the most expensive ones, and then that has been rented for the cheapest rates. So these are all the various list of movies as per the database, which has a very high replacement cost and rented out for a very low value. So that's about the use of filtering. So next one, the light command. So we use light if we want to fetch all the records that has some kind of a phrase. So let's say I want to check the description column which generate thoughts about the movie and filter off every single movie that has the keyword action. So this is how the syntax would look like. So by adding ampersand towards the either end, what happens is if the action word comes in, like it need not be, it comes in at any part of the string, so then those will be retrieved. So if I execute this one, so then as you see, so this particular column here has the word action in it, like it can be it can start with action, or it can end with action, or it can, so this word action can be within like any part of the string, like a beginning, end, or in the middle. So wherever it comes up, like if it is coming up, they will be fetched. So if I if I exclude the ampersand here, so then what would happen is it will look for the columns, the rows that starts with the word action. So after action, it can have any words or any characters, but it should start with action. So that's why, like by using ampersand towards the on the both end, what we mean is like it could have any text before action and it could have any text after action. So whenever the word action is found, those records should be retrieved. So that's about the light functionality. So light functionality is also quite commonly used. In some cases, what happens is, let's say the name of the city, there is a possibility for misspelling and it's been recorded differently. So we can use the light command in order to fetch like any record that has something that's similar to whatever text that we give. So this can be used to filter based on a portion of text. So the next one is sorting. So we like just now saw about sorting. So maybe on the same data set we can sort the data based on the rental rates. So here, so if you see, like by default, when I say order by rental rate, it orders by based on the lowest value to the highest value. So let's say I want to give a descending. So what happens now is this is sorting the records based on the descending order. So the syntax for ascending and descending could slightly differ from one database to another database. So it need not be exactly similar across all DBs. So maybe in SQL Server it could be slightly different, but this is how, like overall this is how it would look like. So the other filtering methods are like we can use between to identify values to fetch all the records that has value between maybe two different values. So this is mostly used for numerical values. So when I execute this one, it would fetch all the records that has the rental duration between 4 and 7. So as you see here, it includes the values both 4 and 7. So it is inclusive of the values that we specify. So that's about the use of between functionality. So then the next one is group by. So let's say we want to do some analysis on the data, and so then in those cases we use group by. So here on the screen, that what you can see is we are trying to get use the payments table to see how many customers and then number of transactions being done by the customers. So what I say is I say customer ID and then count of stars would count the number of records for each customer ID, and then it will fetch. So by executing this one, what it uses is for each customer ID, for example, customer 1 has about 32 transactions in the payments table. So most likely the customer 1 has rented like movies for 32 times, and then so there is payment for each of those. And let's say we want to for each of those customers we want to sum up the rental cost and then see like customers, the high net worth customers or customers who spend a lot on our platform. So then in that case we can use the sum of the attribute. So this is that is a small change. So previously what we had was we had a just count. So now we are saying that we need to sum up the values that is present in that column amount. So this would sum up all those values, and then it uses all those for each customer is gives us the sum of the transaction amount that has been made. So let's say we want to filter out customers who have spent, let's say, more than $200. So then we can use, on top of group by, or whenever you want to do some kind of additional filtering based on the aggregation column, so we can use having. So here we can say having sum of amount greater than 200. So let's execute this one. So now this fetches only the users who have spent more than $200, like based on the payments table. So these are all the various SQL queries in order to implement some of the functionalities that we saw. So I hope you would have learned something new today. So if you are using a different DB, you should still be able to replicate all the commands that we have learned today, and you should be able to try it out. So if you don't have a DB installed as of now, then I would suggest that you go for MySQL DB. So it doesn't take too much of time, and it's quite fast generally. The database that we are using is quite small as well, so it shouldn't have any impact on the performance of your system. So I would strongly recommend that you install the MySQL or whatever DB that you would prefer, and try some of these hands-on exercise, so you become more comfortable, because most of the data science job openings would request for at least one programming language and SQL knowledge. So SQL knowledge is really important for you to crack and data scientist interview, as in the corporate world data would be stored on a database. So it's most likely like you would be spending about 80% of time in analyzing the data on a database using SQL, and finally you will import and then use it on the model, like you will be using Python or R in order to build the model. So it is really important to have a good understanding about SQL, and I would suggest like try out all these exercises on a sample database. So if the database that you are having doesn't have any default database, you can like maybe look online for any sample databases which can be imported as well. So that's it about today. I hope you have learned something. If you have learned something, please give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. If you think this might be helpful for any of your friends, please share it with them. Bye for now. See you on the next sessions. Yeah.